Good morning, turtles. Welcome back to Tim Beaudet's Indie Adventure. I'm Tim Beaudet. This is my Indie Adventure. Good morning. Good morning. We're going to play with some stencil buffer stuff today, I think. Continuing to work on the Turbo Boom UI stuff. Good morning, Dude Sword, Cyber Angel, Leak Geek, Shake Soda, Dan. Dan gets that third place trophy. I'm a little tired. I stayed up a little too late last night. That's why I'm starting slightly behind the schedule, but I also gotta deal with the YouTube stuff still right now. So I gotta go copy the old description, make the old one unlisted. 3 days, third place. Nice. It's a record of sorts, at least. Did you not save? Save. Okay, now you're saved. Come back here, click on the edit button. Pasta. Select the thumbnail. Today we're working on UI. So let's play with that one. Put this in there. Click on this to go get the new code. I know you can't see anything. It's a lot of fun to update YouTube, I can say. Paste the new code in. Click save. Wait for YouTube to do its thing. Continue waiting for YouTube to do its thing. Good morning. Broke my no TV rule yesterday. And by no TV, I mean minimal TV. I'm trying to keep it less than 8 episodes or less, or since an episode could be ambiguous, since you got little episodes and big episodes. Basically, I'm looking for 8 hours or less throughout an entire week. My internet is apparently being sketchy this morning, shaky even. There we are. Good morning, Coda fan, and yeah, it's because I wasn't on YouTube yet. Beep beep, no cat jam on YouTube. There's a crime. First place for YouTube. wait for Tim to notice YouTube chat. It wasn't Tim wasn't noticing it. Tim hadn't finished doing the morning setup stuff. So I'm now finally set up. YouTube I have to set up every day. It's not just look at the same dashboard that is already up. You know what I mean? It's not that smooth. I have to go to a whole new stream link. I have to do, yeah, it's a bunch of nonsense. Still trying it though. Still giving it a try, because why not? And that hot chocolate is definitely still too hot. And yeah, it's been growing. We tend to get somewhere up to 5 people viewing. If only there was an alternative. There is. It's called Twitch. Twitch gets first class experiences for sure. 100%. Twitch is the first class Tim experience. So if you're watching from YouTube and you want first class, head on over to Twitch. I don't know what to tell you. And that's just what happens. If YouTube grows up in popularity, then maybe that will change, but considering chat on YouTube is maybe 1 or 2 a day. I threw some shader stuff at you for parts to give info further on. It's not Turbo Boom adapted version of them yet, but I figure it's best to throw you what's there beforehand while you've got me on it, for however much info it helps. Okay. Completely ignoring, yeah. Have a quick run over these for places you like information. I will do that probably a little later. I will try to do that sometime today. Codafan says Twitch won't let him log in. Why not? I certainly don't expect you to do that first thing in the morning. Yeah. Mr. Brain is like, shaders. Hell, somehow I got a shader sitting up here and I don't know how. How did that happen? We did polygon button support yesterday. That's pretty cool. If you didn't see it, I got the demo right here. So you got a little polygon button, and as soon as, like, you can come in here and not touch it, you can come all around here. So this is the not touch area, and as soon as you hit the green area, it turns blue. Yes, I have to go reset the button. That just is what it is. That's how the UI works. But I haven't made a polygon button in ages. Yeah, I think this new UI is going to want them. And so we now have support for polygon buttons. Versus your just little typical square. You'll notice that this one triggers even with the mouse not actually touching it. Oh, of course the hitboxes will still be forgiving with it. I mean, I'm aiming for pretty big buttons. Like, we just need to get around the whole thing. You don't need to be perfect. I just know we're gonna, based on what I've seen from the artist, is likely to have non-square buttons. Same OS, same browser, different computer works. So I don't understand how it can be unsupported. Does your browser have info on the computer? Maybe there's something there that's... I would assume you tried caches and stuff. Maybe reinstall the browser? I don't know, I'm guessing. I don't know, it wouldn't work either. Sounds like one of those things that should work. Hmm. Okay. Tried 3 different browsers. Right. We did polygon button yesterday. I do need to increase the polish and celebrations after a victory, but I actually don't want to. Like, I'm actively procrastinating against that, and that is... It's basically a task we need to do at some point. But you know what? I found a new thing to procrastinate on with it, so that's kind of cool. We did GL Scissor yesterday, which gave us the ability to do... It doesn't line up. Don't worry. Don't worry about that. You can kind of make it line up if you size the window right, but it shows the proof of concept of scissors. The scissors are allowing us to do this in here. Yeah, we're gonna try doing stencils so we can do this inside of a different shape. So basically have something rendering within a shape, since if you haven't seen this, this is what the artist has given me. Or a concept version of the art. Come on, let's go. Work in progress, something like that. Not finished. Let's go with not finished. Where is it? Here you are. Open. Boom. And I don't exactly know if they planned for these dots and stuff to be moving, but I feel like if they do move slightly, that would be kind of cool. And you can see these are not square. So kind of want to square them up. Or not square them up, but stencil buffer it so that I can do stuff. Kaz says, "Hey, Tim, here's my thought process on game features. Tell me if it's flawed. I don't add any features that assume the player already bought the game. For example, that would apply to polygon buttons." Continue explaining. Very much continue explaining. Loopy Boomer, map name. Yeah. Yeah, there's a big loop. It goes boom. um... I don't add features that assume the player already bought the game. How does a feature like polygon buttons assume the player already bought the game? Obviously. Obviously, I don't assume the player has already bought the game until they're playing it. What? For example, the player doesn't own the game, doesn't care about polygon buttons. They do care about a really nice looking UI though. Like, you need to add polish to the game. And if the game buttons are gonna look like this, let me get back down to the present so I can show you what this looks like. This is complete mock-up too. In fact, this one is even rougher version. But if buttons are gonna look like this, you need to have the ability to hit them right. You can't just do a rectangle. Rectangle boxes look fine. Work fine for that. Yeah. Oh, not seeing these buttons yet. Right. I think they need to be a little bit... There's some changes that need to happen still, but oriented boxes at least. Yeah. And when I was going to do oriented boxes, a polygon was easier. Just a point and poly. The only thing I have to work out still is how I define them, which isn't... Yeah, it really isn't the hardest thing. Kaz, you do what the game needs. You do what the game needs. I am very, very good at saying I'm not going to do a feature because it doesn't add value. In fact, I'm probably too good at saying I'm not doing something because it doesn't add enough value. Like, yeah. Yeah, that thinking will save you time. Yes, but there's also time that you do have to spend. You constantly are what I consider way too conservative on what you need. I definitely see that there is a line. There is a line, and I'm probably on the conservative side, as you say. That is almost certainly true. Um, where are we going? We showed that. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it so we can get these little trophies in the little thing I just showed, in a non-square area. I also need to start setting up a comic book of sorts, which we don't have yet. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm wondering if the main menu needs to see the comic, so you can always access it somewhere without beating a level. Because right now you're gonna beat a level. So I do like that it goes left to right because that's the way you would read, but it also feels backwards based on almost everything else. Like new info comes to the left. Maybe I'm overthinking that. It definitely feels backwards. I think it wants to go the opposite way. Anyway, no, I'm not worrying about that right now. Hey, the point of adding so many things that you spend time working around their absence. That transition feels really sluggish. No, it's there. It's sluggish right now because we have bugs to fix. Like if you hit escape, you close the game. Bugged. If you click here and here, oh, I missed it. I gotta hit a button. But if you click here and here, or you can go into a level instantly, like that. Escape should close the game right here. I am a very strong believer in that. Other people have told me absolutely silly, but I absolutely feel you should be able to spam escape and get out of the game and be done. I switched my instant escape to shift escape. Because if it was so easy to kill the thing when I didn't want to. I mean, it's not easy to kill a thing when I don't want to, with the exception of like, you have to be on the main. This is the only screen that will escape the game. This screen right here. You have to come back to here to do this to close game. Okay. Shouldn't it ask for confirmation? If you're gonna lose something, sure. Turbo Boom levels are so short. You're not gonna lose progress. You're gonna lose maybe like 5 seconds. They're bite-sized. That's how it was built. So you're really not losing anything if you even accidentally press the button halfway through a level, which you're not really going to be pressing that button halfway through the level. It's not like it's right next to the up key or something. So we did GL Scissor. We're gonna be doing stencils. Work on stencil buffer support in Turtle Brains for non-rectangular rectangular. I don't know what we're going with. Non-rectangular draw areas. Clip areas. Kind of a clip, right? Clipping areas. Sure. We're going to do that. Oh, this is the thing we need to work on. It's not the thing I want to work on. Yep. There's that. What did we say we were going to do? Wait, what? Market research, playing and reviewing LA racing game. We're not doing that today, I can tell you that. What did we say we're going to do this week? Why are there so many tabs open in this right now? Google, why do I got double my tabs on these? You messed up your groups again. I mean, I guess at least they're in the same group. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yet then we got 1, 2, 3. Where's the 4? Why do I have GitHub on this one? Where did you go? Roadmap? Roadmap is... Okay, you have a roadmap. Daily goal checker. Roadmap is close. Close. Weekly plans. Weekly plans was twice. Weekly plans was 3 times. Google, what are you doing? Please cook your software before giving it to me. Okay, this is the document I was trying to look at. UI preps, we did this. Build out a placeholder screen for that comic book. Victory sequence improvement. Wow, we've barely done anything. Stencil buffer. Yes, it's the first thing in the morning. Odds are you don't really want to do anything to an outstanding degree. Saw a thing. You saw a thing telling you to do some NS whatevers to request a back buffer on Mac. You are using FBOs, just make your own. I already used the NS thing on Mac. I haven't actually played with it, but why would I make a whole render target to make the stencil buffer? Why not just stencil buffer as part of the depth attachment? Uh-huh. You already rendered to a target. Yes. That feels like the long approach though. I don't know. Based on what I was playing with over here, we have this was the setup. You just enable the testing, draw your shape to the stencil. That would be kind of like what you're saying with the render buffer. For the love of God, don't tell me you're trusting Fluffy more than me. I mean, I was trusting Fluffy on what this setup was. Setup can't be that far off. I don't know where it comes up with a render buffer target. Those states aren't anything to do with stencil buffer. They're rasterized states. Yeah, I knew this part was. I hadn't looked into the further ones, which that's why these GL stuff is, because we weren't trusting it. Stencil buffers are really useful. So you're saying I should straight up use my render buffer as the stencil buffer? Oh, I'm actually saying you have to. It isn't a choice. Isn't that the... What's the purpose of turning the 8-bit stencil buffer on then? Hey Tim, I had an idea for a simple fundraising aim. If I did it and you liked it, would you mark it or sell it? Or you wouldn't touch it? I'm not a marketeer. I would really question why you'd want me to market your game. But if you want to talk with me and maybe, you know, there's monetary reasons, sure, let's talk. You need to change the format of your depth attachment. If you're always accepting reasonable and topical sponsors. First, I need to make it. Well, I would say make it if you want to, regardless of what I would or wouldn't do with it. That would be step one. I'm certainly not going to make promises on something that's not there. Yeah, I might want to get it made. Getting something made is more tricky than it seems, but I would really question why someone would want me to be marketing it for them. Marketing is not my forte. It's not a strength. It's actually probably one of my biggest weaknesses. The business side of this might also be a second part of my biggest weakness, but we're trying. We're doing our best. Kind of like I need to make my game before promoting it and asking Tim to play my game. Definitely before the promoting it. Oh boy, some kind of race thingy. You're doing a racing game too? What's this race at the bottom? Oh, that's a random little racer. The chat jumps in and goes zoom. Kaz beat you. Sorry, I'm trying to manipulate my windows and it's not really working terribly well for me. Can you drag things in OBS? Do you want to grab that? They got like 1 pixel grabbers. The short version of the setup, if you're not rendering to a back buffer, is just find your depth 24 or whatever and slap on depth 24 stencil 8. Or whatever variant of the format. So then I need to come into my render targets, which we have render targets. It's graphics, render target. And we need to come up with a bots. We need to come up with another texture format here. I guess color format would be invalid because we don't need color on it. And then we need to come up with stencil. Can I make a stencil buffer target or something that maybe derives from this and sets things up? Would that be an easier interface for peeps? Not gonna be easy to do that. It goes with the depth attachment full stop. Yes, but I have to think of the public API too. Like, listen, I get what you're saying. I have to use the contents of this class and this object, and this is the implementation stuff. But the usage case of it isn't going to be very fun if I have to go create a render target. Really, with stencil buffer, we should just be the back buffer size, period. Shouldn't need to specify the size, I would imagine. Shouldn't need size. I think we're talking on two different wavelengths, Shake Soda. I understand the implementation of the stencil buffer is only going to be the 0 or 8 bits. I get that. How's it going, Nameless? Our task is stencil buffers right now and how they're going to fit in my engine. Texture format. So we would need here a depth 24 stencil 8. Gross. That's gross. I don't have no depth 32. There should be a variant for 16, 24, 32 float. I mean, you could add all of them if you want. I'm trying to keep the space as they're necessary. All right. I'm not trying to make a one-to-one with what GL does. I mean, as your options here, not what you want to expose. These are exposed. It's also bare stencil 8. These are the nonsense that gets exposed for the stupid render targets, mostly. So we need a depth 24 stencil. Gross. And I assume... I think we're going to want to create our own little stencil buffer thing. The question is, how are we going to do it with this render target? I mean, we can easily fast forward past the bind. The bind and unbind is what will allow you to render your shapes easy enough. How then do we attach it so that it's what gets clipped? There's two different ways we want to bind and unbind that thing. We can't use bind and unbind for both of them. You set the states to compare against. I think you're talking about implementation stuff again. I am right now only concerned with the highest level of API stuff. That's where my head is at. The guts can be whatever they're going to be. It doesn't work like render target in this way. It's basically like writing an object into depth that can hole punch. Yes. It would... The way I'm saying it's going to work like this is you bind it, you render the stuff so that where it can hole punch, you stop rendering stuff by calling the unbind. Then you attach it somehow, you render the other things, which is actually where it's going to do the hole punch, and you unattach it. It's kind of like a bind in two different ways, but it's kind of where I'm saying I don't like the high-level API stuff yet. Nor am I re-implementing all of this, so we're going to have to change this to make it work. I just want the stencil buffer to automatically have the screen size here, because you shouldn't need that. You shouldn't need any color format coming in. You're just going to need to play with the texture format that we just added over here. You could perform a stencil with a depth buffer. That's kind of what we're doing, I think. It doesn't clutter depth when you're actually using it. Not this case. Okay, anyway, that's what we're doing today. I'm going to be playing with this support. I didn't finish looking at my week. I'm not doing so good this week, am I? I actually didn't have any writing on here, so that's actually better than I thought. I'm not a game dev or whatever render required stuff. Do I understand correctly that the stencil buffer is like a clip or erase buffer? I mean, you have some buffer to render. Stencil buffer is applied on that buffer that excludes data according to. Stencil buffer has a chessboard where white recs are ignored to render. So input image is going to be applied to the chessboard only. Yes, pretty much. Pretty much exactly that. And some of the terms are a little like slightly off. It's not erasing things, but it's basically not allowing something to go through it. So like once it's attached and you render, it'll only draw on the black squares as you're saying, and the white squares would just not pass the stencil. It'd basically be like cutting a hole in paper and then like scratching all over that hole or all over the paper, and only where the hole is does something go through. A trick I do is write material ids into it to fill in later. By just setting the reference value for a later pass. What? Now Shakespeare's got to be really thinking. What? It's the alien trick. Pre-pass fill all geometry and write the material in out so you can shade it later without being stuck to one material type. Alien as an alien isolation. Neat. How does that work though? Don't you have to bind materials and change? I mean, I guess if everything uses pretty much the same shader with just different params, that could work with some form of buffer or array. Spare you for further rambling about that game. It's kind of a tech masterpiece. Got it. Domain renewal. Ah, cool. There goes another bunch of monies. Speaking of monies, did I go over my spending amounts yesterday when I went shopping for foods? I think I did. I woke up this morning feeling like I did anyway. Nope, we didn't, but we only have $30 in the account. There's only 30 bucks in there. Oof. No, it really is brutal. Shake soda, that's not even a joke. Oh my god, I bought a handful of snacks and some of the basic supplies. I spent $200. And tacos. I bought stuff for tacos. Is there some MVP already? By the way, MVP of Stencil stuff? Not at all. We're barely starting. If you're talking about the game, it's probably more than MVP. It's not like out and available, but the thing we're working on is polish and spice and everything nice. And what? We touched. We gotta stop touching these files until we're actually ready to mess with them because they take forever to build. Feels like a long Monopoly money will buy you more. Oh, yeah, seriously. That's not a joke either. I'm gonna start shopping with Monopoly money. Oh, don't know how far I'm gonna get with it, but thank you so much, Roki, for the resub. I appreciate that. That'll help next month a little bit with the whole spending fund. So the answer is no pizza on Friday because I actually think I have expended all of the things in February. We paid electricity today. Electricity came out today, so I have $34 to the end of February. That's cutting it close on the budget. March is going to be actually quite hard. Easy in some ways, considering we already did our food shopping, which basically covers all of March and like one day of Feb. So this is Turbo Boom. Ignore the little test button over here that's covering up the car because I didn't place it good. Ignore the fact that these little things stop over here and here. That's supposed to fill up the whole area and be more in the background than they are. But here's the settings. Settings has some work. The whole UI has some work, significant work. But the gameplay is there, I think. You are a car driving through little obstacle courses. This needs work. Like I said, UI needs I need spice. Need to bring the spice to the game. You're trying not to drift, although the car is very drifty. Drifting loses you time. So you're trying to keep it right on the edge. You can sometimes use drifting to get the car to turn a little faster, which is sometimes good, but it's rarely good. And you're trying to beat the time. You know, typical racing stuff. There are leaderboards, so you can compete against your friends and maybe try to get first. Have I mentioned the UI needs work? But you have enough for a pizza, which you can get with $15. Do you want to show me where I can get a pizza for $15? Gotta run. Have been up since yesterday. Go sleep, Shake Soda. Because I'm not getting a pizza for $15. Costco pizza's $10. I don't know where the nearest Costco would be, but I'm not going to Costco to get pizza. I also think that requires membership, but I could be wrong. Could be thinking of another one of the big thingies. Where am I looking? Maps. Google. Where's Costco? Costco. See, yeah, I don't have a membership. You're gonna pay a membership for me? There's actually a Costco in Burlington. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. Okay, so it's 90 minutes away. Are those things still huge? That was my favorite part. Yeah. The pizzas, that is. I believe they are, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I went to Casola's in Miami, the very first time I went there, I was like, I want 2 slices of pizza, because I didn't know. I didn't know what they did with the pizza. I didn't know their pizza was like 14 feet long, and oh, it was huge. I saw this and I'm like, I only needed one. I only needed one. I was like, since when does one slice of pizza fill me? Who doesn't like road trip pizza? Who doesn't like a good pizza road trip? Tim's eating good on that episode. Heck yeah, it was. Lesson learned. One slice from this place. Good pizza, though. Good pizza. I'm looking over here for something, and I don't know what it is. Something's... Oh, I was trying to show off where we're going with the UI again. I feel like I need to keep this open. Have a good one, Jake Soda. Get some sleep. Thanks for the improvements and such. Open browser here. That's the wrong browser. Technically it's not. Thankfully, it's not. Okay. This is what we're trying to get to. Nameless. We're trying to get towards something that looks really good, right? And the reason of the stencil buffer, in case you weren't here for this discussion, is these shapes are not square. Scissor buffer or GL scissors could work if they were square. Well, not square, but rectangular. Like not weird shaped. Okay. Yes. So that's my inspiration and the reason we want to do it, because I'd like these little dots or something to be moving. I'm vaguely wondering if we can resize the dots. It might actually be able to happen. Just based on, like, like a gradient of when you're in this corner, you're small type of thing. That's going to take a little bit more, we'll deal with that when we get there, is what I'm trying to say. Shake Soda has clearly said I need to use my render target for this. And we're going to need to give it a depth stencil. How then do we bind that? I had nothing of what... I'm not going to say that I trust Fluffy over things, but... this didn't feel that wrong either. Which is actually Fluffy's goal, is to make it so it doesn't feel wrong, even if it is. Where's GL Docs? I gotta read some GL Docs, because I'm gonna need to figure out how to, it's docs.gl. I'm gonna have to figure out how to attach. Set the front and back stencil test actions. What the heck is a front and back stencil? What? We have multiple stencils now? Associated gets stencil, stencil pass, depth pass, stencil pass, depth fail. What do you mean these are gets? Draw the stencil shape here. So we don't want to do any docs.gl, color mask, specify the individual color components in the frame buffer cannot be written. Well, that would make it so that we don't write to that. Stencil mask, maybe. Specifies a bit mask to enable and disable writing of individual bits. Initially, the mask is all ones. Where 1 appears in the mask, it is possible to write to a corresponding bit in the stencil buffer. Where 0 is write protected. Initially, all bits are enabled for writing. There can be 2 separate mask writes. One affects back facing, the other affects front facing. Stencil mask sets both to the same. Use mask separate to set. Interesting. I don't know what we're supposed to use for mask, though. We're supposed to use this right mask in there? I don't think so. Yes! Yes, Turbobrains needs a new engine feature to do the stuff in a certain area. And I need to learn how to create a stencil buffer. I actually don't think I've ever done the stencil buffer, even way back when. I mean, I know what they are. I know the high level, but there's where that stops because I never dove into them. Don't hit that yet. Get this on first. It is 7 a.m. already? What nonsense is this? Okay. Go ahead and ask Fluffy. How do we ask Fluffy about frame buffer objects? Don't stencil buffers use FBO? FBO targets. Yeah, you took too much of your context. I should probably have rewound you somehow. I need you to jump back here. I mean, back to initial steps you gave. Step 4. Why not use... These did not use an FBO. No, the default, you require this. Write an FBO required if you want an off-screen. Yeah, Fluffy's talking nonsense, I think. Doesn't surprise me. There is no FBO here, Fluffy. GL bind frame buffer? I mean, kind of a... Okay. You didn't set up the frame buffer. This only works if you have this attached to it. I still think I'm willing to give this a shot. Because this sounds like it might work. I also believe Shake Soda is almost certainly correct. I really don't want to go through my... Like, what would I call both binds? Bind a mask? We're calling these bind render targets. Bind the... Well, maybe bind render target is what you do. Okay, let's say we're in the... I could go play in code somewhere. Let's say we're in the settings screen where we want to be. This was nice and easy with the scissors. We just enabled the scissors, set the area we wanted to draw in, and that. Stencil. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is have some form of stencil buffer. So we create, right now we're pretending it's going to be a render target. So TB graphics, render target, stencil. Okay, it's now warm enough on my legs at least. Stencil buffer. Buffer. Turtle brains. Turtle brains, what were we looking for? Graphics. Render target. Yeah, you need inputs. 100, 100. Graphics, texture format. TV graphics, texture format, depth. That gives us our stencil, kind of, not 100%. Our impl. Create target format container. Color depth. What the hell is this? That's the wrong button. Color, invalid, 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 depth. Okay. That goes in data. Data equals this. Register, create. Let's try the create. Has attached equals invalid does not equal the end. Is that what you are? Create this container. So the container always contains 5. 4 colors and 1 depth. Always. The end. That would be why it's an array. Yes. Good. My head has caught up to that part. So if we do not have a depth texture, we do that. What happens if you do have? That's great. If you don't have a depth texture, you do this. If you have a depth texture, yeah, this is gonna be fun. Um, come on, brain. It's not how I want this use. Like, this isn't feeling very usable or good to write. I'd kind of like something more like you create a stencil buffer. Here's my stencil. The end, it does whatever it needs. Whether it uses a render target under the hood, whatever it does. You create a stencil buffer. Here's our stencil. Now you do something like a stencil dot bind. I mean, I want to call it bind. Bind a mask. Stencil mask. Stencil dot unbind. Stencil mask. To do render the shape we want cut out of the stencil. Stencil clear. Basically a clear of some form here. And then we come down here and we go stencil. Here's this bit. Might not need to do this every frame. For static buffers, for static stencils, this shouldn't need to happen every frame. And then you call it bind, stencil, unbind. And in here, you to render the dots or pattern to be within the masked area. My bad, something got changed around somehow. Okay, there you go. That's basically what we want to do. I think we are definitely going to need a stencil buffer thing for turtle brains. I don't want to build turtle brains and everything else every time I do this, though. That's a very long process. I'm going to try it the once, see if it's actually that bad, but it probably is. Tire bites, turtle brains. Especially where it's a header. I know we touched the texture. This is what we're going to do. We're going to copy it as if it comes from turtle brains, and we're going to write it as if it's going to go into turtle brains, but we're going to just include it from Turbo Boom. Pick the right project there, Tim. Where is the render target? This is gonna be fun. Source core. TV stencil buffer. Pre-make script. Stencil buffer. Create a stencil buffer to cut out little masks. Apply masked areas. Rendering effects. Stencil buffer. It will eventually be in Turtle Brains. It's just not going to be right now. I don't think we need this. Could be wrong with that. Sets up a texture render too and will be rendered. Tell me you got a to-do documentation in here. You don't. You're actually documentation complete. That's not actually very fun. One time I don't want that. We can come back and deal with that stuff later. We're gonna have this should be working with the render target stuff already. Stencil buffer. You shouldn't need to specify the width and height, I don't think. You don't have colors with this. And you're going to be a stencil buffer, period. So I think that's all you get. I think that's the only constructor we need. Stencil buffer. And then we had two different binds. This is how we bound it for rendering. I don't think we need anything with MIPS, so we're just going to go void on that. Bind stencil buffer. And then we go bind render target. Unbind render target. I don't know how I like it or not. We're probably going to want to clear. As we're probably going to want to clear the depth of this somehow. I do think we're probably going to want this clear of sorts. We're not going to manage your pixel data. There's no emit maps. Get number emit maps. There's nothing of that. Is texture valid? Get color and depth texture handles. Width, height, aspect. I think the rest of that can go away. Namespace implementation. Struct stencil buffer data. Stencil buffer data, and this is implementation. Boop. It should just be able to be a color. You're already in TV graphics, sir. It's the whole point of the namespace. That could work. I'm feeling okay with this as our API. And then under the hood, it leverages the render target in some way or another. I don't know how we're going to flip the switch to make this render target be a stencil buffer, but basically in here, grab the top of this header. This is 2025, sir. TV stencil buffer for screen width and screen height. And that's where it should go, but pound include TV stencil buffer. That's where it is right now. And I guess we're gonna want these, but let's get rid of stuff that we don't need for now. Ideally, we're not gonna need any of this. We are gonna want Turtle Brains graphics implementation though. Texture handle to ID. I don't think we care about that. I don't think we care about these. Set map of bound texture. Definitely don't care about that. Load into texture. Depth. This nonsense. We have a struct, which is going to stencil buffer data. In here, we are going to have pound include Turtle Brains graphics render target. A render target. Our width and height should be inside of our target. This is going to be a standard. Actually, we could just do a render target like this, I think. Stencil buffer data. You have nothing in here. You have a render target. Screen width. Screen height. Texture format invalid. Texture format depth stencil 8. Maybe? I don't know. The rest of this file's not there. Then we're gonna need Turtle Brains graphics stencil buffer void. Here's our constructor. We're gonna have an M data is a new implementation like so. Destructor. Turtlebrains graphics stencil buffer. Bind render target. Const. Turtle Brains graphics stencil buffer. Okay, voila. Not perfect. This will be easy enough to just say mdata render target, find render target. Unbind render target. Clear render target. Welp. So then back to our implementation of this. Let's make another function. Void render. Render scrolls. Void const. We'll put render scrolls above these, because that makes the most sense for it, kinda. Turbo boom, settings, screen entity. That way we can take all of this nonsense here, just call render scrolls. Look at that, functions. And then in here, this would be render scrolls. Pound include where is this at? Just one? Core TV stencil buffer. So TV graphics stencil buffer. And this is going to be a bind render target, unbind render target, clear render target. Bind stencil, unbind stencil. Sweet. Now, plenty more on how to do what I want to do. Honestly, what would be the most easy for me in this particular situation is just to give it some points and say this polygon I want visible. The end. Hide everything that is not this polygon. I'm not entirely sure that's how a stencil buffer should work in the long term, but I believe what that means is I would want a Turtle Brains graphics. I haven't used this for a long time, so my memory's gonna be a little fuzzy. But we have TV basic shapes, and in our basic shapes, TV graphics, polygon shape. Is it a filled polygon shape? No. Polygon shape. It's about a bit. Unstable point contained graphics. Are we serious right here? Unstable is point contained. No, that's regular. Did we ever do it for the polygon? We might have overridden it. We did not. That'd be the way to do it, though, in Turtle Brains. Set as triangles. Set as triangle fan. Set as triangle strip. Set as lines. Lines. So we would want to set as triangles. So go shape.set as triangles, the end on that. That doesn't work. That seems to be protected or something. It is totally protected. Oh, you're not allowed to create just a You can't, what? Outlined polygon shape, polygon shape. Yeah, I know the box is a poly shape, the quad is a poly shape, and so on. Circle shape outlined. But you can't actually... Tim, it's not very smart. Outlined. I'm going to use an outlined one to do what I want, I think. We can clear the vertices at least. Never mind, because it still need to be, yeah. Why are these not... I know one reason why is to keep the surface area of the public API as minimal as possible. But I don't think a polygon shape is very useful unless I can add the vertices and create the polygon I want. The only way to do it right now, which is, this is going to be dumb, but I'm not going to change Turtle Brains on that level. So we're just going to deal with dumbness. And this is how we're going to do it. Namespace turbo boom. I'm gonna create a small class in here, polygon shape, public, yep, exactly that. Public of a TB graphics, polygon shape, private, none, we're actually gonna do publics, but well, whatever. Public, we're creating a polygon shape. Do you have a color? I believe you have a color. Probably gonna want a color. Feels kind of natural for me to want a color. I mean, we're doing a depth, like a stencil buffer thing, so the color's not going to matter on the stencil buffer, but it is also a regular polygon shape, so you have a set color. Your outline tends to do... None of you have a color. That's amazing. This API, I don't think I've used it all that much based on this experience. I definitely haven't used it in years. That code is written in like probably 2014, 2015 maybe. And I tended, so the polygon shape was intended to be used by these, as you can see. So I tend to use the box shape, the quad, and this stuff, which is what's leveraging on the polygon shape. But I do think the polygon shape itself should have an API that's a little bit more accessible. Anyway, damn, that's some old code then. My engine started its design in 2012. I think I started breaking code at the very, very end of 2012. Like very, very end. Maybe it was early 13. But there are pieces of my engine that go back even further. I think the oldest pieces are probably from 2014 that have been modified many times over. There's some stuff in here. What skeletons do you have in your closets? Just keep pushing them to the side, you know what I mean? Gotta collect those things. You never know when you might need them. I don't really care about actually writing these, so yeah. We're gonna say set as triangles. That's all you're gonna get. I'm sorry. Not sorry. Set color. Color. There you go. We'll say color equals TV graphics color palette white. How many skeletons in that namespace? In the Turtle Brains namespace? I mean, there's probably a few, but well, I don't know. I've tried to keep Turtle Brains relatively clean. It's why, I mean, it is exactly why we're implementing this in the game area. I mean, it does say Turtle Brains here, but if you notice, this code is actually existing in the game. I tend to do this until I'm happy with something. And once I'm happy with it, it moves in as a fully featured. We can now put this in the engine. So the oversight on polygons that we were just talking about happened because I wound up creating this literally to create the box, circle, and other stuff using it, and then never intended, clearly, to actually use these in the game, which is where the oversight came from. But it's not here nor there. Set as triangles, so we've done that now. We need some form of push. Do you want to give the 3 points of a triangle, or do you want to give add vertex, add vertex, add vertex? I feel like add vertex is slightly easier in some ways. Questions. We're definitely gonna want this add vertex though. Clear vertices sounds like a good thing to add. Technically, making all of these public for us sounds like a great thing. I mean, we're never going to be a line strip. It's only going to be triangles, fans, or strips. And we could technically do a strip for what I'm trying to achieve at the moment. Because we're going to 1, 2, 3, and then you add, nope, I did that wrong. 1, 2, 3, you come down here, have 4, boom, then you get 2 triangles. I don't know if I did the winding order correctly there, but at least we need to do clockwise winding. How do you do this in clockwise winding? So you need to wind this way, that's clockwise. But then you need to wind the next one also. That's the problem with strips. You gotta think about them a little harder than just a regular triangle. 1. You can't do a 1 here. You need to use the last 2. So you have to start here. 1. And the only way around is this. 2, 3. Strips must not use the same winding order stuff. Because if I did another point here, that's counterclockwise. Strips must automatically flip between clockwise and counterclockwise faces. Or am I not thinking properly? There's always that plausibility. That's the only way to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would be 2 triangles, but one of them's not wound clockwise. Anyway, I don't think our winding order is going to matter here. necessarily. I mean, it kind of will in some way. This is going to be a polygon shape from Turtle Brains. Did I copy these? I did. Good job, Tim. Good job. You did it. Strips, I think, use the first point as the center. No, that's a fan. You're thinking of a fan. Clear vertices, add vertice. And vertex 2D position. You should just have, you can use vector 2s here. And all we're going to do is go TV graphics, polygon shape, clear vertices. Ooh. This is a virtual function. We are overriding it. This is a virtual function. We're overriding it. Not really, but we're just making it more public. TV graphics, polygon shape, add vertex position. Wow. Look at that awesome code there. Now we can do whatever the hell we want with this shape. It is triangles. Do we want a strip? Or do we want triangles? Let's say who cares right now. Shape dot push add vertex, add vertex. If this is 0, let's say this is like 200, 200. We're gonna need that to be in a vector. Vector 2, please. Okay, if that was 200, 200, then we're gonna go over to the right. I don't know, like 1,000. Let's go 1,200 by 200. Let's go like right in between them, which is 700. That can't be right. Subtract 200 for both of them. It's 500. No. Subtract 200 from both of them. That moves you to 1,000. Divide by 2. That's 500. Then add 200 to both of them. That gets us to 700. That was right. That feels so wrong. Feels way closer to 1,200. But anyway, and we want this number to be like 800. There, we got a triangle. Now I got a triangle. And of course you call shape.render. We're going to create a second function in here. Void render mask is what we're going to call it. Const. We're creating a second function just so that we can call it for debugging purposes to see where the mask is actually supposed to show up. Turbo boom settings. Screen entity. This thing is pulling a lot of weight right now. Render mask. To do is done. Probably need our polygon shape to be defined above it. Don't you take in a color? Oh, you start as white. Okay. So this is going to break our settings screen, but who the hell cares about that right now? Clear render target, redefinition of something. Yes, sir. Got it. My bad. Render scrolling backdrop not found. Really? Render scrolls. Nope. Render scrolling backdrop. Stencil. Right, we changed it to scissors or stencils. So when we do this, boom! That was cute. Let's try getting rid of the part we haven't actually implemented yet. My bad. Let's just get rid of the whole thing, huh? That's cool. Okay, I want to see the mask is what I'm trying to do. I just want to see the triangle that we drew. Should have a big white triangle. We got a big white triangle. I'm going to call that good enough for now. That is a good proof of concept. Woo! We nailed it. We got a big white triangle. Now, the objective is to make it so that we only see these little trophies within that triangle. That shouldn't be hard, right? Right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to call a render task up here, or render mask rather. And then we're going to undo all of this. And then we're going to jump into Turtle Brains. Render target yelled at me. Could not create something of this type. That would have been like deep in, right? Create texture empty. Texture format. Create empty datas. Format. Well, you used format, right? Is floating point texture. Interesting. So ones are gonna mean that you render there, and that's weird. That's gonna, I don't like it. So you want, when you're creating this mask, you want to render everywhere you don't want. That feels harder to deal with than this is where I want you to render. We're gonna need to work on that in a bit. At least to me, I wanted to find this is the area I want to see. I don't want to have to define, I don't want to see this, and I don't want to see this, and I don't want to see that. Just the area that I want to see. That seems like the easy way to do this. Create texture. Is TB error if an assert? Yes. It's an assert. I have issues reading assert. I constantly question myself, which way do I have to test this? I have to sit there and flip the statement in my head. And if I just say TB error if, I know how to read an if statement. You know what I mean? Like, if this, well then it's an error. It's so easy. 100% change your asserts to this if you have trouble with them and you flip them in your head or you write them wrong a lot. Just change to that. Would do again, but I've already chosen to go that way. Generate texture. Here we are. Case TB graphics. Texture format. Depth stencil. Break. Especially just checking a pointer type is not null. Yeah, it was a life changer when I did that. I did it like 13, 14 years ago now. I honestly don't know why assert is the regular way to do it. Other people are clearly smarter than me. I like my code readable though. I don't like thinking about it too much. I really don't like having to think about my code. I want it just to tell me what happened. Depth component. Okay, let's try this. Docs.gl. Cool. Good search, bro. Depth 24, stencil 8. I was watching cricket yesterday, and he was having the same issue with the way the assertions are. Highly recommend telling him what I just said. It is the double negative, 100%. This was an absolute life changer for me to just call it an error if. I won't go back. One of these is so much more readable. Okay, internal format is depth 24 stencil 8s. Well, where do we get depth component here, sir? This is what you would be. Border, this value must be 0, but then you get these and you got, I don't see no depth component, yet that's what we're using here. Is there a depth stencil component? GL, oh yes, cool. This is where we need shake soda. Shake soda when sleepy. So it's called the format. That's the type. That's the data. I don't know if we leave this as depth or if there's something else I need to do here. Probably depth stencil. I like how you're not up here. That. I'm glad I strolled down. I think I figured something out. Can you copy the... What the crap is going on? Computers. Okay, does this work? Probably not. This texture format has an unknown bytes per pixel value. Okay, I know where we are. Bytes per pixel value. I need to find one of you in a bytes per pixels. Should probably be something like this. That's not there. Right here. Depth 24. Come on, sir. Sir. Where's IntelliSense? Depth 24 stencil 8. I think I did an underscore. Looks good. Return 4 bytes. Channels. I don't know if these are separate channels or not. Are these actually different channels? They make a shruggy face. How do you get the upper? I need the uppers. That's not a very good upper. I mean, I guess we could just do that. I don't know. Yeah. Where's the uppers? What character is this? Is that Unicode's? Probably. Okay, we're not going to do that in my codes. I don't want Unicodes in there if we can prevent. Okay, let's just try. Keep trying. Set up. Boom. Something else went wrong. GL error invalid op. Calling GL text image stencil. Huh. Why? Could you give me more whys on that? It's an invalid op. Mr. Fluff, you gonna have anything for me? You know why this is an invalid operation. Yes, the issue is unsigned byte for depth stencil buffer. Why is this invalid? Depth stencil expects. Instead, GL expects uint 824. Let's go double check our docs. We were a internal format. Did you see the word internal format? Because I didn't. Errors, invalid op. I just see what you have. Invalid op is generated if target is not 2D, and internal format is not these, or okay, if target is not GL texture 2D, which it is. An internal format is, it is one of these. It is not any of those. I lie, it's not any of those. Invalid op is generated if... Okay, we're looking for like a depth stencil. Invalid operation is... And you have a bunch of invalid ops. Do you have anything with stencil? Depth stencil in here? You don't have anything that Fluffy suggested, so that's great news. I'm pretty sure I saw this in here. Yeah, I definitely did. Only once. Only once. This is my first time watching a programming stream. Well, welcome, and thank you for choosing mine as the first. How you doing, Edgewax? We're working on a game called Turbo Boom. You race around in a rally car, trying to beat the clock on obstacle courses. And right now we're trying to spice it up, trying to make it look really cool. So I want to be able to make something like this happen. So right now we're trying to create a stencil buffer feature in my engine that requires this depth 24 stencil 8, and then we get an invalid op. Wonder if RenderDoc would tell us anything. Each element is a pair of depth and stencil. The depth component of the pair is interpreted as depth component. The stencil component is interpreted based on the specific depth plus stencil internal. I'm a video artist. It sounds like you're coding an alpha channel for motion graphics compositing. 8-bit would be for rotoscoping, 24 for transparency. Been watching for like 20 minutes. Okay. You can kind of think of it sort of close to that. It's basically a mask to say, yes, render here. No, don't render here. Okay, so the other thing that we're actually failing on was the unsigned byte is what Fluffy thinks it's the unsigned byte. The following values are acceptable. Does this seem to work? It actually does seem to work. Does Fluffy know what he's talking about? Is it an invalid op still? Invalid enum. We got an invalid enum. Is it still an invalid enum or is it invalid op now? I think it's invalid op now. Invalid op, yes. Okay, so Fluffy doesn't quite know what he's talking about. We get an invalid enum at that point. Do we do an unsigned int? That's, I think, what Fluffy gave us. The hell just happened? That's not quite what Fluffy gave us. I lie. Oh, Fluffy gave me this. I'm a moron. Thank you, Cyan Photon. Why is it not in this list? Or can I just not read it in this list because this list has a bunch of numbers and names? Look at that! Look at that! We have supposedly created a render target. It does look like a very unreadable list. Now we need to actually enable the stencil buffing. So that's going to be in here. How to create depth for reading. Stencil view. Set up the state for the shader. For the shader. Oh, am I gonna need to play? I shouldn't need to play with shader. This should be all kind of fixed function pipeline, no? Do I need to play with something in the shader to enable stencils? Please tell me no. That should be a state. The first 24, the other are undefined. The initial, okay, so no. Tim stencil buffed? Looks good to me, ship it. Well, now we need to bind the stencil so that you can actually apply it. That's our present objective. If we go back to Fluffy's code, and now I don't really want to trust this too much, but Fluffy gave us some some stuff. Let's try writing to the stencil buffer with FBO. Yes, in fact, everything we just did was rendering to a texture. We used our old render targets right here underneath the hood of a stencil buffer object, and now we need to bind all of that stuff to be the goodness of, to prevent the rest of the rendering, this bit. Supposedly we've done this, but with a texture. Stencil testing. Boop. Color buffer, stencil buffer, after stencil, tests. Shouldn't you have rendered something in the middle of it based on those zeros? You can enable stencil testing by enabling the odd question. Do you keep track of your day, morning to evening, like what you do, what you spend money on, and the tasks you complete? I do. Yes. I mean, typically I try to keep one day related to a certain set of tasks, so I'm not hopping context everywhere, but some days are bouncy. Tim is very meticulous. I'm meti something. What exactly do we mean by meticulous? Control T, define meticulous. I do know the word. Very careful and precise. Am I? Great attention to detail. Let's go! Let's go indeed! Thank you. Thank you, V Mushroom. How are you? How is the little delivery game going? Have you gone postal yet? 30-month resub. Let's go. Okay. I don't think we want to clear this. You also need to clear each iteration, just like the color and depth buffer. Each bit is written to the stencil buffer as is. Each bit ends up as a 0 in the stencil buffer, disabling writes. What? I believe we need to enable this here, and we'll probably then disable it here. You don't know about GL? Probably not. Pound include Turtle Brains core OpenGL. Hey, what you working on? Missed some streams. We are working on stencil buffers. The purpose of a stencil buffer, in case you're not aware or somebody else is not aware, because I'm going to be using this term a lot today, is to like mask out certain areas. Actually, this example shows it pretty good. So where there's some ones, they did a little rendering bit. I still don't know why there's not a window in the middle of it, but but basically it defines like I want to render only to this area, and if something goes out here, it won't be rendered outside of it. So that if I render these dots full screen, you'd only see the dots in this area. That's what we're trying to do, because it's 0 in the middle. Oh, it's only rendering where ones are. I'm a moron. I see. It's literally a bitmap. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't call it literally a bitmap. That's like saying this is literally code. 8 bits. It is in fact 8 bits. I see that the ones here are now. Yeah, I get it now. I wasn't looking at the whole picture. For some reason, I thought this was a zoomed in section, and I had that backwards in my head. We got it. We got there. GL disable. Okay, so we enable, we disable. We're probably going to want to clear in a different way. You can do really cool stuff with it by using different rules, front face, back face, correct. We're doing basically the most basic of, let's keep saying the word basic. We're doing the most basic usage of stencil buffers right now. Maybe other effects in the future can come a little more interesting, but stencil functions. In this case, stencil fun. So when we clear the render target, we actually want to, I assume we want to clear the stencils to 0. This is not optimum. We're not looking for optimum code at the moment. We're looking for it to get done. I want the stencil buffer bit. And don't we do like a clear color or a clear value? GL clear color. It's a clear color. Clear stencil. Int S. Probably like that. So that should clear the stencil to 0. Then we render it, should get the ones. I am taking guesses here. Ones are where we're going to render to. This tells when a fragment is equal to the reference 1, the fragment passes and the test is drawn. You can't do greater than equal to or something. Let's just do that. Let's just do this. This sounds like probably a good one to run with. Apparently, stencils are something that can be used to look through objects, obscuring your player. Obscuring. Oh, yes. Only describe whether GL should pass or discard fragments. But GL only describes whether it should pass or discard. Not how we can update the buffer. I think we care about just pass or discard. I think that's all we care about right now. Action to take when the stencil fails, when the stencil passes but depth fails. I think we're good. I think it's all fine. The hell's outlining? Say what? We can use this to outline things? Hell yeah! Hold on. This would be so useful for Track Builder. Oh, by the way, this morning I randomly opened up Twitch and one of the suggestions was someone making a game for the Game Boy in assembly. I made a GBA game, a GBA Game Boy Advance thing. We're using, I think it was still C++, but it was very much closer to hardware than the typical. It might have even been straight up C. Well, I can tell you it didn't work. We are also creating a render target every frame. That's probably not ideal. I didn't miss anything here, right? Why did you think this would work? Because I enabled the stencil test and told it a function, and when it's equal to 1, we do this? Where are you setting values much earlier? We did that here. We create a stencil buffer. We render a mask to it. We then unbind it. Then we bind the stencil. We render the scrolls. We just did the bind and unbind of stencil. That's what we just worked on. That's why I thought it would work. The mask is that triangle. So then we render that triangle here. My extent of doing assembly was playing with it on the C64. Felt pretty neat when I made a raster interrupt effect. Pretty simple one. It looks like it should work. Yeah, it would work if everything worked. If everything was set up fine, it would work. But something's missing. Something's missing in possibly in here for all I know. I don't know if we need more than just this. I might need something to tell it to write to it. You need to enable stencil testing and set the stencil op to actually write. So we need to enable it during this area. Disable it here probably. I'm assuming it's disabled by default. That part I don't actually know. How do you get the right? This is the thing I'm not sure. The stencil seems to be off since the scroll is visible. Yes. Correct. That is what went wrong. Check. Well, maybe just enabling it will work. I don't know. How do you test what it's going to write? Am I right in thinking that you render this full screen and then mask it off? Yes. I mean, we're not gonna render it all full screen. We'll render it kind of close to the bounds, but we'll render it bigger than the bounds, correct. And then it gets masked off. That's what the stencil is the mask. Hmm. Oh, right. I mean, that definitely did something there. This is our stencil. Our depth only pass is our stencil. Can you show me the stencil? The stencil has nothing. There's a problem. Aha! Aha! Okay. We got depth, but we didn't do our stencil. We need to write to the stencil buffer, which is what we thought was going wrong. Confirmed. Pipeline state. Do I need to change my damn shaders for this? Please don't tell me I do. Shouldn't it be black at the start of it? Yeah, my clear should have been black. We cleared it to zeros. That was the purpose of this. I don't even know where it is anymore. Bind, unbind, clear, render target. Clear it to 0. Clear the stencil buffer. Stencil mask to enable writing. How does that itself enable writing? I mean, I did see that in here, but each bit is written as is. Each bit ends up as 0. I thought those were like when it is this value. Each bit ends up as a 0 in the stencil buffer. Disables writes. Okay, so we're gonna enable it here. Sure, let's just run with this. Then GL always 1 to make it pass, to make it always pass. So that will always pass. And then GL replace keep to make it set 1 wherever you write. That is actually a different function. Man, they all seem identical to me. Replace keep to actually... Then once the stencil is set up, you want to go back to this to disable writing. I did it in the wrong spot. Yeah, I did this in the wrong spot. This spot we want this to disable the writing. This spot we want up in the render target. Yep. Yep. Boom. Then when the stencil is set up, you want GL stencil mask and to pass only. Okay, I had that bit. Just didn't have this bit. Oh, recon. It's not storming that badly. That wind isn't there, or